In this video, I'm going to show you how you can build the ultimate calendar table that you can reuse for different projects in Power BI. We're going to go through it step by step together so you can follow along as well. All of that and more. So without further ado, let's get started. Hi, my name is Fernan and welcome to the Solutions Abroad YouTube channel, where we cover tips, tricks, and best practices when working with Power BI. I upload new videos every week, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell icon to get notified when a new one is out. If you're a long-time subscriber to the channel, you'll know that I've covered calendar tables several times already. It's good practice to have one in your datasets, and it gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of your time dimensions. However, today we're not going to focus on those benefits, but instead show you how you can build the different dimensions in a calendar table that you can use and reuse on other Power BI projects. Now, there are many ways that you can create calendar tables. However, today we're going to use DAX, but you can do this in Power Query too, which will have somewhat of an equivalent to what we're going to write here in DAX. So we're going to start with a super blank Power BI report here, which literally has nothing. We'll have no data in here, and we're going to start by creating a calendar table here. So we're going to go to modeling and new table here. This is what will allow us to create a DAX table. So we're going to name this one calendar, and we're going to simply use the calendar function to generate our calendar table. So it asks us for two dates, the start date and the end date. So from here, we're going to simply use another function date. So we're going to set some random values here. So let's say we want this start date to be at the beginning of 1991. And the end date would be the end of 2050. If we close that, that is pretty much the first part of our calendar table done. You can see that from here, and it will simply generate a list of all the dates between these two dates that we have created. So 1991 to 2050. So you'll see in other cases, you might have this option to use calendar auto, which will automatically check the highest and lowest dates of your values within your dataset. However, what I found is that when you're using calendar auto or something similar where it checks back into the dataset, you may have some problems with the calendar table if you have no values to begin with, like in this case, for example, or if you have to create some relationships where it might cause some circular dependency. So in this case, just to be safe, what you want to do is just set up a manual start date and end date for your calendar that will need to be generated to make sure that no errors will occur. At the moment, we only have the date field in our calendar table, and normally you would have a lot more. So you can use them as slicers or other different dimensions so that we can use them for calculations. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some more columns here. I'm going to wrap this calendar table with an add columns function, which simply allows us to add more columns with the calculations that we want. So let's wrap it like this. And let's add our most basic ones. So year, quarters, months, days. These are the most basic ones that simply exists, and they have their own dedicated DAX functions that you can just use and reuse. So we're gonna start with them. So I'm gonna create a first one, our year, which will be like this. We'll just use the year function. If you hit enter, there you go. So you got the years, and we'll just simply do the same thing to get the rest of the other versions. So we'll start with the, let's say, quarter. I think there is also a quarter here. We have, I believe, month. Week. there's 2 weeks here, weekday and week num. So I'm gonna make a distinction. And this one is actually also a number, which we'll touch back in a bit. So weekday. And we'll say this one is day. So there you go. So you have your basic values here. So you got years, quarters, month numbers, week numbers, weekdays, and days. So pretty easy, right? Now let's add a few more useful dimensions, which are a little bit more custom. So an example would be adding a month, which is the month name. You will use the format here to format the date. And here we'll use MMMM. So this is the codes to show the month as the actual month itself, January, February, blah, blah, blah. And it might be useful to know also the week, which is Monday, Tuesday to Sunday. So we will also use format for that. Dates should be 4 Ds. We hit enter. There we go. So you have the month name itself as well as the week name, which is pretty handy. We should also maybe think about adding usually when you look at quarters, you would have Q at the beginning of the number on the quarter. So we can also do that. Quarter number, and we'll just say Q ampersand quarter, like this. There we go, pretty easy. So these ones that we've just done are more custom slices and dimensions, which won't normally be readily available for you in Power BI. However, with the calendar table that we're setting up and setting up with these slices, you'll never have to think about how to calculate them, as you can simply just use them as a filters in your reports. Now let's add a few more extra things. So let's add, and let's say we want to show in our reports a year, month, so that we can have the year and then the month next to each other. So we can have here year, month, and what we want is the year, and then using a dash or a space, we will have the month, or you can also have it the other way around. It doesn't really matter. So just add that like that. So 1991 October, or maybe, yeah, no, let's just keep it like that for now. And I want to show you something really quickly, because this is a common mistake that happens and not a lot of people seem to know how to resolve this. So let's say we want to show our year, month, the one that we've literally just created. Let's say we want to see it for the year of 2022. You'll see if I sort it, it doesn't sort it chronologically, it sorts it alphabetically. So it says April at the top because that's April because of the A, as opposed to the actual chronological order. So a very useful way of making sure that your sort order is chronologically correct is by creating a sort field or sort column for that specific value. So let's create one here, year, month, sorts, which will simply be year, which will be here dates, and then month. So what this will do is it will give you the year and month, but when you use this as your sorting column, it will make sure that it will follow the chronological order of your dates. So year month, when you hover or when you select that column, and then you go sort by year month sort. So I can see that it's not really sorting properly. We missed one thing, which is just to make sure that it's not text format. So that it's sorted by number. So we'll change it into whole number. So now it should follow a sorting order that is pretty much following a chronological order. So you can see here year month, even though it's a text, it follows the order of the actual year month in a calendar period. And it's very common to create sorting fields like this. So what you want to make sure is if you have, and if you're only using it for sorting purposes, you can hide it so that your users or you won't need to see it, and it's an extra one less thing to see in your model. So now it's hidden. You'll see here there you won't see the year month sort, but it will just make sure that the year month field is automatically sorted. If you want to do this for year and quarter, we can try to do the same thing so that you can see how to do it again, but for a different context. So we'll do year quarter like this, and then we'll say year, and then our quarter, which we'll try to use this new one with the Q. So something like that. And then what we can do, create a year quarter sort. And then year quarter sort, make sure it's changed into a whole number. And then finally on your year quarter, you simply sort column by year quarter sort. And then let's hide the sorting column. So now when you bring in year quarter, it will always be sorting the correct way. So next, let's deal with fiscal dates, which are essentially financial periods that don't follow the standards where the start of the year is in January. And this could be different depending on the country you're at or the context of your company. So let's say an example would be a fiscal year would start in February and ends in January the next year. So an example would be a fiscal year that starts in February and ends in January the next year. So for example, from this year, February 2022 to January 2023 is the current fiscal period. And sometimes you might want to be able to see the data within a certain fiscal period, not for the actual calendar year. You can do that pretty easily using DAX, and you can even implement it here in your calendar table. So let's start by creating a new field here. So we'll call this one fiscal year. And to keep it simple, I'm gonna start writing date, and 11 months. So what it will do is it will adjust whatever the current date is in the row and add 11 months on top of it. You'll know why I'm doing that in a second. So for now, we're just going to do that, and then you'll see that it will just add 6 or 11 months from the current date that you're at. So 6th of October, you have 6th of September 1992 next year. So now that we have adjusted the date, we can simply extract the year from that adjusted date, and that will essentially group our dates into the fiscal year starting in February, ending in January. So what you'll see now, if I remove my filter here for the year quarter, if we add a fiscal year, you'll see that the fiscal year starts in February 2021 and ends in January 2022, which I need to check why this is being filtered and sorted like this. But essentially it follows the fiscal year that we have defined. And for you, if your fiscal year starts or ends in a different period, you simply just need to adjust the e-dates from the calendar table that we've created. So in this logic, we can follow the same thing to add different dimensions in our fiscal year. So we can add a fiscal month. Instead, we can add here month. We have the fiscal quarter. And fiscal week. So this allows you to be able to swap and see different dimensions in a fiscal calendar as opposed to just the normal calendar. There we go. And finally, what you can add are, and these are more optional stuff. I personally like to create dynamic fields that I can use to save myself some time in terms of calculations later. So a good example would be to get the last 6 months of dates from today. Yes, I can use implicit filters to get that information. And yes, I can add it as a filter context in my calculate functions. But sometimes I may and do have requirements where I simply just want to use a filter for it instead of having to create a calculation for it. So in this case, you can build this kind of calculation in our table. So let's start by creating last 6 months right here. And we're going to say if we're going to use the end of month date. So whatever the end of month is of whatever date is in our row, if the date is greater than today, six months ago, and the current date is less than or equals to today, then we want to tag this as true. So what it does is it creates a range. So the from date, which is 6 months before, and make sure that the end date is today. So now at the moment today is the 27th of November. If we say, and probably the easiest would be to give you the dates. If I say add the filter to get the last 6 months, and if I say true, you'll see that the start date of this would be the 1st of June. And then the end date would be the 27th of November, which is today. So that will give you the full 6 months, including this month. Pretty easy, right? Another requirement that I want to show you is something that I got recently, which is essentially doing the same thing. Get the last 6 months. But the difference is to only get the completed months within the last 6 months. So at the moment we are in November. However, November is not completed yet. And the last 6 months, we might want to get only from October and then 6 months from October, which is to make sure that if we're doing some financial calculations, that we're only accounting for full complete months as opposed to including the current month. So how would we do that? So let us go back to our calculation here. Let's create another one, last 6 months complete. And we're going to create an if statement here. And we're gonna break it down into several components to make sure we don't get confused. So if we're gonna check today first. If it is not complete, so this one checks to make sure. So this one is saying if today, the end of month, if it's the end of month today, so basically if the month is complete. If it's not complete, it should do something. If it is complete, it should do something else. So if it is complete, so we'll just copy this one. So we'll just, if it's complete, we will just use this calculation. However, if it's not complete, we want to do a slight variation to this to say end of month. We want to start from 7 months before and then finish one month before the current month. So it will be -1 here. So now what it will give us, and probably it's easier if I just show year month instead of dates. Last 6 months complete. So say true. So you see, it will not give us November because November is not complete. However, it will adjust the start date as well to start from May to give us the last 6 months until October. So here is the comparison of the last 6 months, including November. So this is the last 6 months compared to the last 6 months of the complete months, which gives us from May to October. Pretty easy. And that's really it for this video. I hope you now know how easy it is for you to create your own calendar table with as much dimensions as you can, so that you don't have to recreate them again and again for future reports. Thanks for watching. As usual, give this video a like if you found it useful. Give it a dislike if you didn't, so I know to do better for next time. Ask your questions in the comment section box below so I can help you and you can help others. If you really like this video, we have a Patreon page where you can support the channel and get exclusive perks like early access, demo files, and credits at the end of these videos. Thanks again for watching and see you in the next one. Bye bye.